Hello, good citizens. My name is Dan, and welcome back to part 2 of the Prosecutor Lies and Crime series. This video covers the first day of trial for the assault allegation that Ron Kirkwood falsely arrested and falsely imprisoned me for, and that was for telling him over the phone that he was wrong. As I said before, I am representing myself as the allegations are so hilarious and bogus that I knew I could win all on my own without a lawyer. So the morning of the trial, Kate Dutton attempts to hand me a disclosure package, and I refused to accept it, as I felt it was unfair to disclose potentially new evidence as the trial is literally scheduled to start. This is what I spoke about in part 1 about how Kate is relying on unfairness in order to win this case, but I guess since there was no evidence, what else could she possibly rely on? Now, the courts assisted the prosecutors in delaying the trial. First, I was told to come back at 10 a.m., then 11 a.m., and then 2 p.m. When the trial finally started at 2 p.m., lo and behold, a new prosecutor. And I guess this new prosecutor, he needed some extra time to prepare, so that would explain the court's decision to push it back till 2 p.m. So this new prosecutor refused to give me his name, and I laughed at him and told him that I'd have his name by the end of the day. And it turns out that he is a local immigration lawyer named Paul Jeffery Cheeseman, and his only hope becoming rich and powerful is to take on the prosecutor role in cases that have no evidence, and hopes for an easy win so that he can make a name for himself. Either that or the full-time prosecutors didn't want to lose to a buffoon who could barely put together a grade 12 education who's showing up to court without a lawyer. Wow, wouldn't that be embarrassing? So listen carefully here, because everything you're about to hear is relevant for the next upcoming parts. And I'll give you a heads up now, what you're about to hear in the rest of this video was actually used against me, as other prosecutors misled judges about what you're about to hear, so that they could retaliate against me for taking video of Kate Dutton at their office and making them look like fools on the court record about disclosing the alleged victim's full address to me, which is something that that's a huge mistake. Prosecutors should never disclose a alleged victim's address to someone who they're portraying as an angry, violent offender. So here we go. What you're about to hear and see are from the DARs of the Victoria Law Courts and the court official transcripts. As the trial begins, Mr. Pooh takes the stand and tells his bogus story. When he's done, I get to ask him questions. This is called cross-examination. Here it is. So, Mr. Pooh, your address is Suite Ding Zero Ding, Ding Ding Zero Ding Uphill Avenue, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, it's not relevant.
Yeah, normally we don't have personal information about witnesses before the court, so unless there's a really good reason for that,
sure,
I'm not going to allow it.
No, I was just under the impression that whatever was disclosed, I could ask questions about it.
Well, I don't know why that would have been disclosed, but in any event, I don't think his address is relevant unless you can establish a basis for relevance.
And Your Honor, for the record, I don't think it was disclosed.
It was, sir. It's in your paperwork there. It's in your statements. Care to look at them? So when I refer to your building, for the record, Mr. Pooh, I'm referring to Ding Ding Zero Ding Uphill Avenue.
Okay, again, I'm just going to. If you need to speak about an address, go ahead, but we're not going to tie it specifically to Mr. Pooh. Like I say, unless there's a reason to do that, okay?
Okay, and just for the record, Mr. Pooh might want to inform the proper authorities, and I would advise Mr. Pooh and his wife to make formal complaints to the Law Society.
Okay, hold on.
BC Crown can't...
Hold on, Dan. This is your opportunity to ask questions of...
Sure.
Mr. Pooh, not give him advice, okay?
Yeah, I'm just putting it on for the record, just...
Yeah? No, just questions.
The reckless disregard of potential victims, personal information being divulged.
Dan.
Sure.
Dan, questions of the witness, please.
Perfect. So when you took your dogs for the walk that day on July 2015, you exited through the main door of your building, correct?
Okay, again, we're not going to talk about where he
Oh,
exited from cause it's not relevant.
okay.
So
from the area near where you live, which direction were you heading?
From where I lived at the time, I headed south along the normal route.
South. Thank you. And shortly after, just a half a block south of where you may live, on the same side of the street as near where you may live, one of your dogs stopped, and you stopped walking as well to allow your dog to defecate. Do you agree?
Yes.
And you didn't go anywhere else. You went straight from the area where you live, heading south on Southbound Street. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so you just stated, there's a couple of questions back. I asked you, didn't go anywhere else. You went straight from the area where you live and heading south on Southbound Street. Is that right? You said yes? And now you're saying you didn't do that. You were actually throwing something away in a garbage can on Uphill Avenue.
They are the same place.
So you're saying the direction that's south on Southbound Street that you were heading in directly from where the area where you live is on Uphill Avenue?
Sorry, what are you asking?
I asked you a question earlier. The question was, you didn't go anywhere else. You went straight from your, I have, quote, building, unquote, but now I'm...
Okay, well, let's clarify this, cause I think probably I've undoubtedly confused things.
Sure. My walk started.
I think he already has, Your Honor.
Up out here. Walked out. There's some grass here.
That's all.
The dog pooed right there, and there's a garbage right there. That's where the bag went.
That's all new. Okay, so let the record reflect as such, Your Honor. He's now gone back on his, quote, normal route, unquote.
Well, I'm not sure I understand that. I think you need to clarify that because...
Well, if I'm not able...
He said he started near where he lived.
Well, if I'm not able to use the word, the term, quote, your building, unquote, then you're really constricting my questions as to...
Yeah, and I think perhaps, Mr. Cheeseman, well, perhaps Mr. Pooh, I'll ask you this. I gather you've moved since then? Are you comfortable talking about where you were living at that time?
Yeah.
Okay, so, let's have where you lived at the time. Can you show that? Is that building that's on the top right-hand corner?
It is that building.
Right, so...
Okay, so I think your question was, at least as far as I've got it, is you started from where you lived and you went straight from there to where your dog defecated. Is that the question that? I'm not sure I have it exactly right, but that was how I noted it.
Yes. I walked out to my building. There's grass there. The dog pooed. I put the bag in the garbage and then proceeded to walk south.
So let the record reflect as such, Your Honor. The question was, you didn't go anywhere else. You went straight from your building and headed south on Southbound Street. Is that right? And he said, quote, yes, unquote.
And that is right.
Yeah. And then I asked you a few questions later, where did you dispose the previous bag of dog feces? You're saying Uphill Avenue?
Yes. There's a garbage can right outside the building I was living at the time.
Let the record reflect as such, Your Honor. Where did you dispose the previous bag of dog feces?
Your Honor, this has been answered several times.
Yeah, I think it's been confused, though, Mr. Cheeseman. It may be clear to you, but I was confused because I was trying to protect the witness address and so none of this was particularly clear to me. So...
Right. So his answer is Uphill Avenue, which is north of the direction he said he was heading in when he left.
Yeah, I've got that now, but I'm just saying you can ask the question you just asked.
Sure, yeah.
No, I lived on Uphill Avenue, so it was not north of my direction. It was my direction. I walked out of the building to the grass.
That wasn't...
The dog pooed.
That wasn't the question, Your Honor.
And what is the question?
Well, if we go back to the original...
No. What's the question that you want to ask him now? And just give me a second to finish my notes here and then we'll talk about what's going to happen. All right. So okay. So this matter is obviously not concluded. We've got the Crown evidence, 3 more witnesses, and then any defense evidence if that's going to be called. So let's start with you, Mr. Cheeseman. Given what you know now about cross-examination and how it's likely to go, can you estimate how long the remainder of your case will be? And I appreciate it's a difficult question.
Your Honor, I think it all depends on how much leeway Dan is given on his cross-examination of the police. From the Crown's perspective, the remaining 3 witnesses have very little information to give. The Crown's case could likely be done in an hour with the 3 witnesses. If Dan is restricted to cross-examination that is only relevant to the police officer's involvement, 10 or 20-minute involvement with this offense, I think we could certainly be done in a morning. If he's given the leeway to get off into all sorts of other areas, then it could take longer than a day. But the Crown's case itself, I think,
about an hour?
Would be fairly short.
Okay, so, Dan, I know that again you're not a lawyer and it's often difficult to anticipate the length of cross-examination, but can you give it your best try knowing what you know? Which is what the police evidence is likely to be and what the evidence of the other civilian witness is likely to be. Can you anticipate how long you might be in cross-examination of each of those witnesses?
3-4 hours?
Okay, and I'm going to ask you this question, but you don't have to answer me if you don't want to, all right? You're not required at this point to even determine whether you're intending on giving evidence, but sometimes people know that in advance. So if you know that and if you wish to share that with me, I would hear anything you had to say in that regard.
I have an entire mountain worth of evidence, Your Honor, I'm presenting.
Okay, so at this point, and again you're not required to keep to this or even to tell me this, but at this point it's anticipated that there will be some defense evidence. Is that right? And
There's a lot.
Okay.
There's a lot of defense evidence, Your Honor.
Will it be more witnesses than just yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Can you just give me a general idea of how many witnesses?
4.
Okay. And so give me an estimate as to how long you think that might take?
1 moment.
Yeah?
I would estimate 3 hours.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to suggest we set another full day for this. I think that should be sufficient. Dan, you probably have a bit better idea of how this is going to go and certainly, you're entitled to cross-examine fully to explore any defenses, but as Mr. Cheeseman stated, you're not allowed to cross-examine on things that are irrelevant to the allegations before the court. So I think we should be able to probably wrap the whole thing up in a day. If not, then we'll set another day at that point. Thank you. All right. So as I was saying, I think we need a full day. The suggestion as I understand it through the clerk from the JCM is that we come back tomorrow to fix a day. And there was a suggestion for some reason that they come back in front of me maybe just for ease of my schedule. I gather this was originally scheduled to continue tomorrow. Is that the case?
It was, Your Honor. Yes, it was set for today and tomorrow.
Okay, and I apologize to both of you. I think in an effort to try to get it on this afternoon I was the only one available and I'm not available tomorrow. And I'm not available tomorrow because I have another continuation. So if it was something I could change, I would. But it's someone else who's already sort of in the queue ahead of this case and they too want to have their matter continue. So I don't want to bump them to hear this. That's not going to help anything. So unfortunately we're not going to continue tomorrow, but it was suggested that we come back tomorrow in an attempt to find a date and that may back before me just to make sure that we can get something fair. In fairly short order. I don't know what your schedule's like, Mr. Cheeseman. I don't know what your schedule's like, Dan. I do know that I have a number of commitments over the next couple weeks and then I've got 2 weeks vacation where I'm actually out of the country. So it may well be that we're going into September before we find a date and I don't know if that's...
I would object to that, Your Honor. I'm on bail conditions. And I need to get off these bail conditions as soon as possible.
Okay, so...
I've been on the bail conditions since December.
So what we are going to do, Dan, is we are going to set this at the very earliest available date. I'm just warning you and that's why we're going to. If we can, unless one of you tells me you can't make it here tomorrow at 9:30. We're going to set it. We're going to come back before me in this courtroom tomorrow morning to fix a date. In the meantime, I'll talk to the judicial case managers. We'll do whatever we can to fix the earliest date possible.
Yeah.
But as I've already indicated about tomorrow, there's a number of other things that have been scheduled in, and so we need to see if in fact there's time for it.
I would object, as my rights and freedoms they're completely being held hostage by the bail conditions.
Okay.
And I think...
What bail condition are you concerned about in particular?
Oh, all of them.
Okay.
And I think once...
So what we're going to do, Dan, is we're going to do everything we can to get this heard as quickly as possible. I'm just really warning you that it may not be this month. It will be, if it's at all possible. That's what we'll aim for. That's our first attempt, but if not, well, let's come back tomorrow. Can both of you come back tomorrow at 9:30?
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, I can't come at 9:30. I have a prior commitment. I am scheduled to be in 101 at 11:30, so probably after. I could be here for probably 10:30 if need be, but I do have a meeting at 9:30 that I can't.
Okay. Would that work for you? 10:30? And we can do it without Mr. Cheeseman and his calendar, but it's probably easier if we have him there and do it here and me here.
I have tomorrow completely set aside.
Okay.
For being here.
So I am in this courtroom with, as I said, another continuation, but if you could attend at, would 11 work for you?
Yes. I wonder if we need to go to the JCM to get the police officers' schedules. I don't know. Can we set a date with the police schedule from the courtroom?
We will definitely need to involve the JCM. I will not be just creating dates out of thin air. I'll be speaking to the JCM because I also don't have complete control of my calendar.
Yes.
I don't know what all they've got me scheduled to hear, so I'm going to talk to them and we'll make sure that we have police availability. And it may require some going back and forth with the JCM, but I'm thinking maybe 11 if that works. It'll give me a chance to talk to the JCM in the morning, and I'm thinking that I will require as little waiting as possible for the two of you, cause I'll take the break. I'll interrupt my morning case at that point, hear your matter, and then take the break, and then if we need to go back and forth to the JCM, you can always come back after the break. Is that going to work, or is that going
That would work.
to be difficult with your schedule?
For me, Your Honor, yes.
Is that going to work for you?
I'm totally open tomorrow.
Okay. So 11 o'clock back here in this courtroom tomorrow to fix a date. And in the meantime, perhaps, Mr. Cheeseman, you can just make sure, and I'm sure they probably already are, but make sure that the police availability is in the computer.
Yes, Your Honor.
And I will, as well as that they have your availability, which may not be tied to this
Yes.
case at this point, and I will see then what they can offer us in terms of available dates, okay?
And
And do you have any dates, Dan, that you know you're not going to be available, say in the next 2 or 3 weeks, or into September failing the next couple weeks? You are your witnesses, quite frankly.
I'd have to go over and check.
Okay. Can you make sure you do that before you come back tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Because there's no sense setting a date that you're not available,
Absolutely.
or your witnesses aren't available.
And pointless to bring any...
You don't have to bring anything,
Okay.
except your calendar and information on your witness availability, okay?
Appreciate it, Your Honor.
All right. Tomorrow at 11.
Thank you. This concludes part 2. Thanks for watching, and be sure to watch the next vids, which shows how prosecutors fabricated evidence, obstructed justice, and criminally harassed me, contrary to the Criminal Code of Canada. Thanks for watching.